Joy Sri Sita. Oops, have I said something indecent? Or my YouTube viewers must be wondering what is wrong with RSM? Why is he saying this? Yes, Joy Sri Sita. Every time I say this, you wonder why. And I wonder why not. If we want to find the critical answer to this popular slogan, we have to travel from 5th July 2020 Ayodhya to 1789 Paris. Yes, let's then travel like Netflix's Dark. Let's then time travel, space travel from 5th August 2020 to 1789 France, Paris. And once we reach to 1789 Paris, we see that a glorious revolution is happening in Paris back in 1789. And what is that? This was French Revolution. Now, when we are talking about French Revolution, we automatically talk about three values: A, equality; B, liberty; and C, fraternity. I have no problem with equality. Let everybody become equal. I will be very happy with that. I don't have any problem with uh, the second one also, liberty. Let's celebrate liberty. Let's celebrate independence. I would be the happiest person if we have equality and liberty amongst mankind right now. But I am very suspicious about the third philosophy of French Revolution, and that is equality, liberty, and fraternity. So, what bothers me is the third value of French Revolution, that is fraternity. Now, what does fraternity mean? In Bengali, we say bhatrittabodh. Every time I say bhatrittabodh, I wonder, where are the bohins? Where are the sisters? Do the sisters not have any place in bhatritva, bhaichara? What about bonchara? What about sisterhood? It's absent. It's conspicuously absent. And I am telling you why it is absent. Because every time a fabulous movement like French Revolution happens in history that celebrates equality, that celebrates freedom, it interestingly celebrates freedom, equality only among men. And women are very cleverly excluded. So even when French Revolution was taking place in 1789 Paris, patriarchy took hold of it. And the brothers, the men, the Napoleonesque philosophy, all the celebrations of equality and kind of freedom and liberty remain only limited to men and masculinities. And women were again, like so many times in history, have been excluded. And patriarchy cleverly finds another way of excluding women again in history. Therefore, I find French Revolution liberating. I find French Revolution celebrating equality, that unfortunately it celebrates liberty and equality only amongst men and men alone. So Saubhatritva does not include sisterhood, সৌবহিনত্ব. Now, happy Patriarchy Day, 5th of August. Now, I do not begin my YouTube upload for nothing when I said Jai Sri Sita. So every time we celebrate Jai Sri Ram, very interestingly, only one Maryada Purushottam is there. I have no problem with Ram, but interestingly, the whole celebration of Ram and Ramayana, the whole celebration of epics is incredibly patriarchal. If we go back to ancient classical Greece, we had Iliad and Odyssey, but then again, celebration was about men and their heroism and their heroic masculinities, and women, yes, they are there only as victims of patriarchal masculinist epic heroism. And this is not very different from Indian epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata as well. So it's all about men and their masculinities, and men and their masculinist patriarchal heroism. So nobody talks about Sita, like nobody talks about sisterhood in French Revolution's fraternity or show patriotism. So very interestingly, patriarchy has find its door, find its kind of a smuggle its way into the Shobhatritva, and having excluded all the sisterhood unconsciously. Now, we need to be more careful about how patriarchy keeps entering into those great movements, into those great epics. So, am I happy with epics? I would say yes, but I would say no as well, because all the epics, all the classical stories, be it Iliad or Odyssey or Ramayana or Mahabharata, they somehow manage to find an exclusionary politics, and invariably the patriarchal exclusion victimizes sometimes Sita, sometimes Draupadi, sometimes Helen, and sometimes it is through epic masculinist heroism, and sometimes through Shobhatritva of French Revolution. Now, when we celebrate French Revolution as a great glorious movement, we unconsciously end up celebrating patriarchy as well. And this is something that we need to be slightly aware of, but we hardly remain aware of, because as I keep pointing out, thinking is difficult and patriotism is easy. Now, if we theoretically deconstruct both the words patriotism and patriarchy, one particular word is common to both of those words, patriarchy and patriotism, that is pater. And what does that Latin word pater means? In English, father, pita, baba. Now, very cleverly, the whole concept of patriarchy has eaten up the concept of patriotism. And that's why whenever we think about the nation, the thought is brain, and that is why it is called patriotism. And whenever we talk about the body of the nation, that is motherland, therefore the body is always gendered feminine, that's why motherland, not fatherland. And therefore the thought or the brain or intellect is always masculine and patriarchal. Therefore thought is patriotism, not matriotism. Hence we do not have the concepts like matriotism, because it is always patriotism, because thought is brain, is male, and therefore we do not have the concepts like, say, fatherland, because the body, the sex body, has to be feminized, because the thought is brain, is intellect, is male, and the body is female, and that's why motherland, not fatherland, and that's why not matriotism but patriotism. So the whole concept of French Revolution, the whole concept of epics, the whole concept of Ramayana, Mahabharata, the whole concept of Iliad, Odyssey, and the whole concept of patriotism, they are noble concepts. They are great concepts. They are very popular concepts because they celebrate patriotism. And every time we say we celebrate patriotism, patriarchy smiles somewhere in the corner of the room and say, good, keep celebrating patriotism, keep becoming patriotic, keep becoming nationalistic, and keep upholding patriarchy. So as a queer theorist, as a feminist, because I don't see any difference between being a feminist and queer theorist, so as a queer theorist or as a feminist, I find the whole concept of patriotism, French Revolution, and epics are incredibly patriarchal and patriotic, and patriotism is easy because of two reasons: because it celebrates patriarchy, and we are conditioned in a way, our brain and head in our culture, that everything that is patriarchal, we are taught to accept it. So every time I say Joy Sri Sita, you are shocked, because how can you celebrate feminism? Epics are always about Ram, right? So I mean, Draupadi, it's about Pandavas. Sita, it's about Maryada Purushottam. French Revolution, it's about Bhatrittabodh, fraternity. Sisterhood? Na. Bonder kotha thak ekhon. This is how patriarchy interprets it. Now, before I conclude this video, let's understand one particular thing slightly cleverly. How does this function? How does it actually operate and interpret us? Okay. Now, when we talk about, say, nationality, we talk about Indian, we talk about American, we talk about Australian, but we don't realize that we don't select those nationalities. Either I am born Indian, or I am born American, or born Pakistani, and we accept that nationhood. Similarly, we are not selecting our sex bodies. So if someone is born with penis between the legs, I do not decide to be born as male, or I do not decide to be born as female. So our sex identity is very similar to our nationalist identity. Therefore, the whole and when we celebrate parenthood, পিতা মাতাকে সবসময় শ্রদ্ধা করতে হয়, that means we also do not select our parents. So parents / nation / somehow the state ideology / sex bodies, these are the things that we are accidentally born into. And when we start deciding our identity on the basis of sex body, then what we are doing, we are denying ourselves our agency. Have we selected my male body? No. So when I am expected to perform gender masculinity, I am not selecting my verb gender, I am thrust on it. Similarly, when I am trying to be proud of my nationality and I am trying to be proud of being patriotic, then I am not being patriotic. Patriotism is thrust on me. And when I am allowing to be thrust those patriotic identities like the sexed identities, then what we are doing, we are being denied of our agency, and therefore individuality, and therefore identity. Thank you. Joy Sri Sita.